Hey guys, thanks for joining me today. It is Wednesday, April 25th, 2018, and this is the 11th episode of my virtual workshop series on intuitive eating. Today we're here to talk about Principle 3. We're already up to Principle 3 out of 10 principles of the book Intuitive Eating, which is making peace with food. And before I go any further, here's my usual disclaimer that everything I say here is for informational and educational purposes only and should not take the place of any advice that you may receive from your healthcare provider. So just wanted to say today is Wednesday. Sunday I turn 40 and feeling pretty good. So pretty excited about that. And that's it. So make peace with food. What the heck do Tribole and Resch mean by that? Well, here is my interpretation. Peace is the opposite of war, right? So who's at war with food? I would say plenty of us. And even if you've never felt that way yourself, we've probably all heard somebody in our lives say, oh my gosh, I can't be around whatever, Oreos, donuts, muffins, Doritos, without wanting to gobble them all up. Or I can't keep Oreos, donuts, muffins, Doritos in the house, or I'll eat them all. Or I lose all control when I'm around Oreos, donuts, muffins, Doritos. Well, to me, all of those statements are representative of a strained relationship with food. And if food is supposed to be, quote unquote, just food, if it's an inanimate object with no actual power, then how can it overpower our superior human psyche time and time again? Well, what if food isn't the real issue? And I'm sorry, there's a hair just bothering my face. I have to move that or I'll drive me nuts the whole time. So what if food isn't the real issue here? What if it's not the Oreos, the donuts, the muffins, the Doritos with the power? What if it's our mindset about the Oreos? What if it's not the Oreos we're at war with? What if it's the way we feel about the Oreos? What if we're at war with ourselves? Or rather, the way we feel about the restriction that we subconsciously perceive when we consider the Oreos. So what if we've tried to fight the battle against the Oreos so many times and we've, quote unquote, won that battle a lot? You know, we resisted the urge to eat the Oreos. We white-knuckled through it. But over time, fighting that battle over and over again takes its toll, and we end up losing the war every time. Because see, every time you wage that battle, you're sending yourself this message that you can't have this thing that you want, that you can't be trusted. And psychologically, that message gets translated into you don't deserve this thing. And it's just Oreos, right? So how can that be something you deserve or don't deserve? Which psychologically gets translated into you're not good enough for this thing. And this message, that's the root of the diet mentality. And that's the root of the deprivation mentality. And just a side note here, the deprivation mentality really has its roots in issues with permission and abundance, which is the opposite of deprivation, but we will circle back to that in a couple of weeks when we uncover the key to making peace with food. And yes, I'm sorry, you have to wait for the answer, but you have to wait to learn the secret to uncover the key unless you want to go read the book, Intuitive Eating yourself. But I'm really trying to work through these points slowly so that you have time to let each one sink in. Because if I just threw the answer out there without you working through each step that leads up to really believing that this whole intuitive eating thing works, then it actually wouldn't work. Because you have to be ready to accept that it will work. And if you don't work through all the concepts, if you don't peel your onion back layer by layer, then the key that I will share with you doesn't unlock the secret for you. Because it took us all plenty of time to arrive here, right? And if you're someone who is at war with food, and it took many, many, many battles, some won and some lost, before you arrived at this place where you feel like you've lost the war, Does that make sense to anybody out there? Or maybe this is just my own war. I don't know. People don't really provide that much feedback. Though I know you're out there watching because I see the views, but there must be some people with whom this message resonates because the same people keep showing up to watch. And I don't know for sure because people don't share their comments or reach out to me, and that's okay because it's a really personal thing. Despite the fact that I'm showing up here every week to share my own journey with you, this fight is a very personal one, and it takes a long time to get to that point where you're willing to expose yourself. And that's totally okay. So keep tuning in. You don't have to share it, but if you feel like you want to share, then throw out there how what I'm saying resonates with you, because I'd love to hear it. Anyhow, I'm in it. I'm in the thick of it. It's happening. It's working for me. And while I'll always feel tempted by the allure of a new diet, call it whatever you want, a new mindset, a new health craze, a fad, a phase, cutting back on whatever for whatever illusion of better health it offers, I will never diet again. I will never try to control my body size again. And if I have to inhabit this body that has more fat on it than it's ever had in my life, which is so scary to me, and if I have to go through a couple different clothing sizes until I reach that place of peace, then it's worth it. And it's a constant daily struggle not to ask myself, what's wrong with me? All these authors say that intuitive eating was the way they found their true and natural body size, one that's easily maintained. And for people who suffer from disordered eating behaviors that cause them to eat more than their body needs from a caloric perspective, many of these people have lost weight. And I sit here and say, I'm doing it. I'm going through the process. I'm peeling back the layers, and it's not happening. But then I remember it's time to take a step back and say, it may never happen. This may be the body I'm meant to inhabit for the rest of my life. And this body may have to carry extra fat for the rest of my life because of the lifetime of restriction that I put it through. I have to take a step back and remember that my body cannot possibly trust me yet because I've abused it for a long time. My history includes undereating, over-exercising, restricting entire food groups, cutting carbs, carb cycling, purging after binging, running myself into injury, not letting my body heal from repeated sports injuries, especially in college, pregnancy, and then drastically cutting calories to lose that baby weight. I did Jenny Craig, which is meat with a shelf life. My husband used to say that it looked and smelled like dog food, which I just shut out because I wanted to believe that this was the solution. And he just stood there and shook his head, and he was right all along. I did Weight Watchers, which is just another name for restricting calories, and then getting together with this cult to celebrate or demean the members. We've done meal delivery services, meal plans, and I started the abuse of my body at such a young age. I almost can't remember the first time I put myself on a diet. Nobody did it to me. But I recently recalled all the little books, and my stepmom probably still has them tucked away in the attic. All little books that I tucked all over my room where I meticulously counted calories. And I was young, like 7 or 8. And then I went on crazy diets, all self-imposed. And when I couldn't keep it up, I learned how to purge. And my best friend in high school or middle school taught me how to throw up. She taught our whole group of friends how to throw up. And we did that together for a while, which is creepy when you think about it, until I realized, because a field hockey coach who meant a lot to me pointed out how bad it was for me. And then I realized how bad that friend was for me. And then I became a serious athlete, and I realized that I needed fuel. But that was wonky too. I lived off of Cliff Bars, plain bagels, and tuna fish mostly. And that just sounds disgusting when I think about it. But that's what I ate most days in high school. And that was it. And a Snapple, which is why Snapple. And then I played field hockey or lacrosse for an average of 3 hours a day. And so enter over exercising. I learned that I could let up on my restrictive eating habits a little if I just kept working out. So I made it to the gym in college every morning for an extra couple of hours on top of my field hockey and lacrosse practices. And my coaches commended me for being committed. I wasn't committed. I had messed my metabolism up so much that it took that much exercise to maintain my body size. I mean, it's a miracle I graduated college with the GPA that I did. I don't know how I had the energy to make it through because I was literally working out so many hours a day. But then I remember that I worked in a coffee shop and I drank coffee nonstop. And one summer I drank so much coffee that I actually fainted at work. So the signs were there that I was abusing my body. Anyhow, that's a little too much of my personal history, but I think that we're at a point now, 11 episodes in, where I should share some of that with you, because if you're going to trust that this process works, that it can work, that it has the power to heal you, then you need to know just how deeply my self-hatred of my body ran, and just how long I've been in the business of manipulating my body weight and size and shape. And it might help you understand just how deeply I feel this battle within myself of currently inhabiting a body that's so much larger than I have ever, quote unquote, allowed myself to be. I'm really outside my comfort zone, and I'm so scared that this isn't the right path for me because I keep wanting to wake up skinny and it's not happening. But, and here's the big but, I've read everything out there on disordered eating. And if you can find something for me that I haven't read, then please share it with me because I would love to read it. I've read every diet book. I've tried almost all of them. And I've come to a place where I just can't try another thing that isn't working. I mean, I literally hit diet rock bottom, and that's why intuitive eating really struck a chord with me, because the authors talk about that in the first chapter. They talk about, having tried everything, being at the end of your rope, and this is the only other place to turn. And it's so different from everything else you've ever tried, then it might just work. And I believe that intuitive eating is the only other way for me to go. It's the way that I'm going to heal myself. And so I keep chugging along. I keep talking kindly to myself through my doubts, and I keep reminding myself that I'm worth it. I am worth the effort, and in my heart of hearts, it feels like the right thing. And intuitive eating might not be the right thing for you, but if you're still here watching, it just might be. So after all of that, way too much, and maybe I'm reminiscing or maybe I'm getting personal because I am turning 40 on Sunday and started thinking about all that. I read a quote somewhere on, Pinterest or something that said, by the time the first 40 years of your life are just a dress rehearsal. And now that I'm done practicing, now I'm ready to live. And that really struck a chord with me. So I think that just brought up all these memories and issues and all this stuff. But anyway, way too much about me. Let's bring it back to the point, which is principle 3, making peace with food. And to make peace with food, we need to understand the concept of deprivation. A few weeks ago, we explored the physical effects of deprivation when we talked about the Dr. Ansel Keys starvation study, which again is really, really interesting. If you want to go back and watch that episode, it's really interesting. So now we need to get more into the psychological effects of deprivation, because the universal human reaction to limiting something is to want it more. And we're going to get into the fact that some of us not only deprive ourselves physically by going on diets, restricting food, but those of us who have become chronic dieters might also be people who chronically restrict ourselves on psychological levels, and probably are not aware of the fact that we do that. A lot of us are probably people who put ourselves last, who pay less attention to our own needs than those of others, and we might be people pleasers. Shocking. So next week, May 2nd, Can't believe it's almost May. We will dive into that concept, the psychology of deprivation, or what is called the deprivation/guilt cycle. And it's a key concept to really appreciating intuitive eating, that the more you try to white knuckle your way through certain restrictions, and by that, by white knuckling, you could probably get the idea, but basically forcing yourself through sheer willpower, through maintain restriction, the more you try to do that, the more you attend birthday parties and avoid the birthday cake, even if you really want it, the more you'll be driven to overcompensate later. And we'll talk about how and why that happens psychologically. And then the following week, May 9th, we will get into the compensation side of deprivation. So what happens after you deprive yourself? And that is called rebound eating. I guess it's like rebound dating. And a lot of us can probably identify with rebound dating and rebound eating. And one of the most overt forms, Tribole and Resch call Last Supper eating. So if you take a second to think about it, it makes sense. Eating all the food before you go on your diet Monday morning. But in addition to Last Supper eating, there are some much more subtle forms which might really hit home with some of you. And then we'll talk about how dieting is even possible. I mean, we've spent 10 weeks talking about how diets don't work, and some of you out there are saying, but they do. Because I know someone who lost a bunch of weight and she's kept it off. So it's not the diet. Diets must work. It must be me. So on May 16th, I will shatter that illusion and share how dieting is actually possible for some people some of the time. And just a hint, it still doesn't work. It just seems like it does. And finally, on May 23rd, wow, May 23rd, that's like 4 weeks. May is a long month. I will get to the good stuff, the secret, the key, the answer that I alluded to in the beginning that you've been waiting for, how to make peace with food. But that is quite enough for today. Too much sharing, I think. But sometimes you just have to put yourself out there to connect with people, right? And I had to let you in on a few secrets so you would understand that I kind of know what I'm talking about. I've been through this on a very personal level, and I'm still going through it on a very personal level. And I mean, that's why I'm doing this. Number one, to help myself continue to heal. I'm not completely altruistic. I don't get paid to do this. I'm putting a lot of time and energy into creating these episodes every week. But a huge part of the reason I'm doing that is because it's helping my healing process. And number two, I'm doing it in the hopes that I might help one person out there who's still suffering. But until next week, if you like this episode, please share. And if you'd like to contact me for group or individual session, you can visit my website, www.kpcoachingjupiter.com. You can shoot me an email. You can call me. My cell phone number is on there. You can text me. You can PM me on my Facebook. I'm here for you, and I want you to be happy. So glad if you were able to tune in and watch this today. I'm under 20 minutes. If you liked it, give me a like, a thumbs up, or send the link to your friends and family. But thank you so much for your support and continuing to tune in and listening. It means a lot to me. So hope to see you next week. Until then, be well. Bye for now.